Hey, Carmen.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Dan.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm a social worker here in the clinics. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks. First off, I wanted to thank you for making it into clinic today. I know that you're here alone, so it means a lot that you were able to make it. Did you find the place okay? Find the place okay?
Yeah, it was fine. I have a car and a phone, so I have GPS, so it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a few things here, and while we're talking, I'm going to be taking some notes down on my sheet just for I can't take in everything at once and remember it, so don't be distracted by my writing. I promise you I'm listening. So.
Okay, so why do I need to see a social worker? Like, what are you going to do for me?
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to talk about a couple different things, and you were referred to me today for a couple of different reasons. I understand that you've recently been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which at your age, I understand may be an important situation that you want to talk about. And also some of the other care providers in the clinic have told me that you've missed a couple of appointments, and that's something that eventually I kind of want to talk about, those two being the main points. But for right now, we can just couch that and we'll get to that in a little bit. I just first off just want to touch base with you a little bit. I just want to learn a little bit about you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, what are your favorite things to do at home? What are some of the hobbies you have?
I like to watch Netflix. I've been watching Friends. I love that show.
I do too. It's a good show.
Pizza. I love going out for pizza. Bowling. Just hanging out with my friends.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You got a good amount of friends around here?
Yeah.
That's good.
Mostly at school.
That's cool. It sounds like you and I have a couple of our favorite shows are in common, so that's nice. That's nice. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, you're here by yourself. Do you mind if I ask where your dad is today?
My dad is at work. He has 2 jobs, so normally I'm just like by myself at home.
Okay. So what do you think about being home alone so much? Does it worry you that you're home alone that often? Is it something that we should talk about further, or should it something I should bring up with your dad maybe the next appointment we have?
I'm not really too concerned about it. I feel like I'm 17 and I know how to make food, and so I feel fine about it.
Okay, so you're not too concerned about that. That makes me feel okay, and that you're able here to make it here alone. Does your dad help you at all with managing things that have to do with your type 1 diabetes diagnosis? Does he help you at all with managing your insulin kit? Does he make a good effort, to explain to you things about your diagnosis and how you manage it or anything like that?
It seems like he's learned a little bit from the doctors, but he doesn't really help out that much at home, and he's at work a lot, and I just don't really like to talk about it that much anyways, so.
Okay. Yeah. So there's kind of 2 things going on here. He's not around a lot for one thing, but then coupled with that, you don't really like to talk about it that much. To address that first point, Carmen, I think it would be really important to make sure that your dad is supportive in helping you manage your diabetes. I'm sure that you're on top of things, but the fact is that children, even compared to adults, when they have this diagnosis, they really need to be paying attention to their blood sugar, and you need to make sure that you're taking your insulin how it was prescribed. And like I said, again, this is especially important for children, even compared to adults. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, you mentioned too about that you don't really like to talk about it even when your dad is home, and he is your dad, and he was probably there with you when you got diagnosed. Can I ask you why you don't really like talking about it with him?
I just don't really believe that it's true, and I don't like that I have this diagnosis, and I just don't really want to talk about it.
Okay. And I can understand that. I can't sit here and say that I can directly empathize with you about your diagnosis, but I know at this time it can be a pretty scary thing and maybe something you don't want to accept. But the people here in the clinic, what we're mostly concerned about is your health. That's first and foremost. And I want you to know that the diagnosis that our clinician here gave you is really, really important for your health and something that needs to be taken really seriously. Even if you don't really want to bring it up and talk about it with your dad, I think the more that you can talk about it when you're at home with your dad, the better it will be, because he can learn the basics about what it means to have a teenager who has a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. And coupled with that, the more that you can talk with him, the better that he can learn, because it kind of makes the reality of your diagnosis all the more real. Instead of just coming to the clinic, you get the diagnosis, and then we go home and you're not really talking about it anymore. If you can kind of tell him what your problems are, how he could help you, that's going to help him learn even more about it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So since we're talking about your dad right now, before you leave, I'm gonna set up a follow-up appointment with you, probably for a couple months, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm gonna make a request that your dad be here for the next appointment, because maybe you won't remember everything we talk about today, and if he comes back in a month or two, I can kind of get a good understanding if he's understanding your diagnosis well. So does that sound okay?
Yes. Okay.
All right, so thanks for all that information. Moving on from here, I just kind of wanted to ask, what kind of things you're eating when you're at home?
Well, I said I like pizza, so
Yeah.
pizza, candy, soda. I like to eat cereal in the morning. Yeah, those are like my main things. Get fast food. Because I have a car, I can drive, so.
Yeah, and that's something I can also understand. Those are the kind of foods that I really like as well. But I know I'm a social worker, but it's something I feel like I really need to let you know, and I'm sure that you've talked about this with your dietitian, but I really just want to kind of double the efforts and letting you know that you really need to be eating as healthy as you can. And I know at this age it's probably particularly hard, and especially if you have a car and you're 17, you've only been driving for like a year and a half, so it's really nice to be able to go out and buy what you want. And I know at this age that's hard to do. And I know that you've been staying home from school a lot because you're not feeling that well. And I think a big reason that could be happening is because of the diet that you have, the fast food, the high sodium, the high sugar kind of things. But if you have a healthy diet, eating those whole grains and getting the natural sugars from fruit and stuff like that, that can go a long way in kind of helping make you feel well on a consistent basis, so you don't have to miss so much school. And also, being a diabetic, it's really important to be eating healthy so your blood sugar doesn't get too high and it stays at a good level, so you're not, if it keeps it at a good level, that means you're not getting behind on your insulin shots, and it's just going to make you feel not nauseous and stuff. The thing that's been keeping you from kind of getting into school, or that make you not feel good, if you're keeping consistently a good diet, that's going to help a lot. So does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's try to work on that, and in the next appointment we can kind of go over how that's been going, and kind of start slow if you need to. I know if you're making a pretty big change in your diet, that's kind of hard to do, so feel free to start a little slow and make sure you're checking your blood sugar as you're going along with this. And we've been talking about school, so I wanted to ask, how's school going when you do make it in? Are you enjoying it there?
Yeah, school's okay. I kind of hate taking my insulin kit with me, and
Yeah.
I don't really want my friends to find out that I have diabetes, so I don't know, I haven't really been enjoying it that much.
Not enjoying that much, and a lot of it has to do with bringing your insulin kit and kind of worried about your friends finding out and things like that. Again, something that I can't directly empathize with, but I can totally understand is thinking about it. It's kind of hard to accept that you have a medical condition that probably statistically none of your friends or your peers may have around you, and it's also one that makes it so you need to be checking your blood sugars. It's not an easy thing to deal with. You kind of have to separate yourself and go into the bathroom and check your blood sugar, and maybe even give yourself a little insulin injection. What I would kind of want you to consider is the fact that just because you have this medical condition, it doesn't make you any different from any of your peers. You're still a wonderful, wonderful person, and having this condition is nothing to be embarrassed about, all right? And if I could make a suggestion that I'll note here, I would suggest actually talking to at least your close friends about your condition, and hopefully what you'll see is that it might even surprise you, that your friends won't see you as any different than they are. And feel free to tell your friends about the condition and why you need to be checking your blood sugar levels, and you can kind of turn it into a learning experience for them. And the more you talk to them about it, the better you feel about the more people knowing it. So then one of those reasons for kind of not going into school, worried about what your friends think, won't really hold you back anymore. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, but I mean, even if I didn't care what people thought, I still have to check my blood sugar and then injecting insulin, and it just hurts.
Oh, so one of the things you don't like about your insulin kit is that it hurts to inject the insulin itself.
Yeah, because I inject it with the shot, and it hurt, and I don't like needles, and it hurts.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you for letting me know that. One thing that I'll do for you, Carmen, is I'll write down in my chart, and I'll make sure that our specialist sees it in the clinic, so that maybe you can get an assessment so that you can get an insulin pump. And what that's going to do is you're going to be able to pump in the insulin that's already connected into your body instead of having to do individual insulin injections. It isn't painful, and from the experience that I've heard from people that also have your diagnosis is that it's a whole lot easier. So I'm going to make that note in your chart, and then maybe even by the time you come back for your follow-up appointment, you can see the specialist and we can see if we can get you a pump instead of the shots. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of sticking along with this school stuff here, do your teachers know that you have diabetes?
No, they don't, and I don't want to tell them, but I also haven't been checking my blood sugar because I don't want to tell them that I need to go to the bathroom so much and then wonder why it took so long. So.
Okay. Yeah, when I was in school, I was always worried about asking the teachers too many times to go to the bathroom and kind of worrying about what people think, and the more you do it, maybe people can kind of see that you're leaving more than everybody else. So I understand that. But I just want to make it clear that I'm worried about the fact you're not checking your blood sugar levels or taking your insulin. And the reasons why is because it's very important to be checking your levels, because people with diabetes, and this isn't a scare tactic to make you feel bad or anything, but when you have type 1 diabetes, you're at an increased risk for things like heart disease or stroke or kidney problems. And if you can be checking your blood sugar on a consistent level and you're seeing that your blood sugars are fine, and if they're not, you can kind of inject insulin to help your body deal with that sugar intake. It's really going to help manage those risks that we're talking about. And again, so if you can start doing that on a more regular basis, and we can couple that with you getting a pump, do you think that'll help you kind of be more open to checking it more often?
Yeah, I guess that could work.
Okay, so and then the second point going along with that, Carmen, is the intersection of your type 1 diabetes diagnosis with the school and having your teachers know. I want you to know that it's not just our job here in the clinic, but it's also the school's responsibility to make sure that you're safe while you're at school. So you can either I can let your school know, or your dad can let your school know. But we need to let them know about your diagnosis, because once the school knows about your diagnosis, then we can make what's something called a diabetes action plan or a diabetes management plan. And that kind of just lays out the details of your insulin prescription, so that your teachers and people like your gym teacher and stuff, they'll know that when you ask to go to the bathroom maybe more frequently than the other students, they're going to have known about that plan. So it's not going to be a big deal for you to have to excuse yourself out of the classroom to go check your blood sugar levels and then pump in some insulin. So something I'm going to do is make a note, and we can talk about this. I can make maybe a follow-up call in a couple weeks, but something I really want to do is get in touch with your school so we can make this this diabetes plan, so that, because I want you to feel comfortable at school. I know the friends thing is something that may take a little bit harder to get around, but your teachers and especially your gym teacher needs to definitely know about your type 1 diabetes diagnosis, and the first step to doing that is letting them know the management plan. So does that sound okay?
Yes.
Are you okay with me doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you starting to feel a little bit better about all this?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Because I know this is a rather difficult time for you right now. But I want you to know that you can call me, or your dad can call me at any time for any questions. And when we leave here today, I'll give you my card with my direct line.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I know your diagnosis is your own business. And although I recommend telling your friends about your diagnosis, I know that it's your own personal diagnosis, and you don't have to tell anybody that you don't want to tell about it. But I don't want you to feel like you should be embarrassed, because it's not your fault that you have type 1 diabetes. And the most we can do about it now is to focus on you staying healthy and you taking care of yourself. So does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. So before I walk you out, I just kind of want to go back through what our visit was about today.
Okay.
And I'm just going to take a few notes here. But so I'm going to schedule you for a follow-up for about 2 months from now. You're going to come back in. I'm going to request that your dad is with you so that we can go back through a couple of the things and see how you're doing. I'm going to refer you to a specialist so that we can see if you can get a pump so that you're maybe a little more willing to take the insulin shots, or the insulin injection rather. I'm going to get in contact with your school so that we can set up a diabetes action plan so that they know about your diagnosis, and there's no reason why you can't be telling them that you need to step out of the classroom and go to the bathroom and check your blood levels and pump in some insulin. And I'm also going to get in something I didn't tell you about before. I'm going to get in contact with our dietitian, because I know it's been a while since you've been in clinic, and maybe her and I can come up with some foods that will kind of help change your diet slowly, that are also kind of fun to eat. They're a little bit healthier than pizza and candy and stuff like that, but they're not gonna, it's not gonna be just plain shredded wheat or something like that. It's gonna be something we can talk about the dietitian. So those are things I want to address. And then just before you leave, I wanted to talk about something in the clinics we call adherence. I've been something with as fragile as something like type 1 diabetes. It's really important that you're able to make it here into clinics on a consistent basis, and I don't want you missing schedules anymore. That's one of the reasons we don't schedule meetings week back to back to back. We like to spread them out over 2 months so that you and your dad can plan on being here. So if you can really make an effort to, when we walk out, I'll have the receptionist give you the date of our next appointment, and I really would like you to make a better effort with getting here so we can make sure that you're staying healthy, and that overall I feel good about you being out there managing your diabetes. And I think the more you learn about your diabetes, the more you'll be open to not being so self-conscious about it. And I understand that, but I think the more you learn about it here at the clinic, the more it's going to help you. So does that all sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to write a quick thing here, and then we can walk out, and I will take you to reception. So, but today, thank you for making it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen.
Nice to meet you.